So this is a standard pressed steel 2-inch post cap. Nothing fancy, nothing major. This is a 4-inch pressed steel post cap. Okay? With a piece on it. This is for a fence. This is recessed rollers. This is 1.5 by 3 piece of rectangle tubing. They do not make a post cap for it. This is a standard 3-inch press cap. I'm going to show you how to cut and modify this to fit this. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, this is a 3-inch pressed steel post cap, just basic for wrought iron fencing. This is a piece of scrap 3-inch square tubing, similar to the main post that you saw out there that had the big steel ball on it. This is a piece of 3-inch by 1.5 rectangle tubing. That is what I used for the outside guide roller for my rolling gate that I'm going to make and take this and turn this into a cap that fits this, because they do not make a press cap to fit 1.5 by 3-inch rectangle tubing. First thing I'm going to do is, I've already marked these out. Since this is 1.5 inches, I've already marked these out at 3/4 of an inch on both sides, right there. Then I'm going to transfer the lines from that onto the press cap. So with that on, now I'm using, this isn't a plug for Sharpie, but when I'm doing stuff like this, I like using those Sharpie Ultra Fines because it gives me a much more accurate line to mark on here for my cut. I transfer the marks over here, okay, and then I take, the reason I use a rubber mallet is because I don't want to mess up the edge or the face of this and put dents in it with a regular hammer, so I use a rubber mallet. So now I've got my lines transferred here, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a quick mark right here, just like so. Follow the existing line that I just made on all 4 sides, well, on all 4 lines, all 4 marks. Damn mosquitoes in here biting my ears. Okay. Get that there. Now I'm going to take and kind of eyeball align it. So it's really awkward to do. Decently. It doesn't look like it's going to line up correctly, so go to this one, check it. That one looks good. It's kind of a eyeball measurement. Put my mark across here. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get this one just a hair better. That's why. Okay. There we go. All right. There's that. I'm taking keep my 6-inch rule on the flat so it's easier to move around. Okay, there's that. Then there's, so this is all 4 spots. Like so. Now you have all 4 spots, all 4 marks that I've made on there connected together. So I will take and I will cut this out, this piece out. When I cut it, I'll stay to this side of the line. I'll stay on this side of the line right here and this side of the line here, and give me a little extra, so when I sand it and file it and I put it together, it will make a tight fit on this piece. Okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut these and get ready for to weld. So if you can see, I cut to the inside edge of the line so I can sand it back just a little bit and then put them together so that they match up just like that. And that will help me get rid of the burr that's on the inside. There's this little ultrafine half-round bastard file, so I could do the final clean for the burrs on the inside of both pieces. That way when they're put together, it's nice and clean and it looks just like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to TIG weld a couple of tacks along the ridge right here to hold it steady on DC using my foot pedal control, so I can get this to stay in one spot so I can get it clamped. So see here, I got a couple of tacks there. Everything's in place, everything lines up, looks nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a couple more tacks, one right here and one right here, and I'm going to do a dry run and test fit it on a piece of rectangle tubing. So after I put the couple of tacks here that I mentioned and I do the dry fit, then I'm going to weld it up. What I'm using is some 035 MIG wire 70S6 70S series, because I don't have any TIG wire thin enough to do this. The smallest I've got is like 1/16 or 3/32, which is too thick to try to weld this. It'll make too much weld for me to try to grind off nicely. Not that I couldn't do it, it just wouldn't be nice. So I'll be welding it up with this. But let me go ahead and put those tacks on it and then do the dry fit, and then we'll do the weld after that. Oh, let me put something on here to hold it, because it's not wanting to cooperate. This one has a little bit of a gap, so I just need something to hold it for me for a second. Okay, now all 4 sides are tacked. It's pretty even on the inside. I might have to clean it just a hair to fit over the piece when I'm done, but here's my piece. nice and snug, just like if they had made it and come from the factory. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to weld it. And after I weld it, then I'm going to clean it. Use a die grinder and a sanding disc, probably a 40 or 50 grit, and then I might wire wheel it to kind of blend it out. And then it should be done. And I'll use a burr or a file to cut that edge to make it look like nothing was ever done there. So I'll show you that here in just a second. I'm going to leave this on here as a stand for me to weld it. What I'm going to do is called a wash, so just bear with me. You see that little divot right there? I have to add a little piece back into it. So I'll do that with a little bit of weld. And build up this edge, and then I'll grind it off and file it. A little tiny spot right there. Okay, so welding this up, you see I got a little bit of concavity right there. So I'm going to have to put a little bit more weld right on that because it sucked in, it kind of dropped. So, but I was running at about, I had my machine set at 45 amps, and I was probably running closer to 30 to 35 with my foot pedal control. But most of it was done with a wash. Some of it was done with 035 MIG wire right here. And I'm gonna let this cool for a second, and then I'm gonna use a wire brush. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna put a little bit of weld right here on this spot and right here, because there's a couple little pitting marks on it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up, and then show you the finished product when it's done. Okay, so here's this. This is all done. I deburred the inside where I had a little bit of weld buildup. You can see the seam in there. Clean both edges. If you look really close, you can see the line that I put back in with the ultrafine file. Buffed up here. We still have to wire wheel it, but all my edges are even and nice. So now we're going to do a final fit on a piece of 1.5 by 3 rectangle tubing. You see, nice and snug. The way it's supposed to be. And there you go. A custom made post cap for 1.5 by 3 rectangle tubing, because they do not make this at all anywhere. So there you go. Watch, pops right off. Supposed to. Just like that. There you go. And if some of you are wondering why I'm using a drill with a wire wheel instead of one of my other tools that I seem to have plenty of, it's because I don't have any wire wheels to fit the 1/4-inch shank on my die grinder. That's it. It's all done, buffed out. What do you think? Okay, so here is the post cap that this is going on. As you can see, I've already filed down the little tack welds that I put on there, so that way when I put this piece on, it'll fit down flush. And if you notice, I cut a couple little notches on here that I did not show before. I marked it out and did it so that way it fits around this part of the existing bracket from the roller and the weld and the roller itself in the piece. So I'll put it on. Nice snug fit, and now it matches the rest of the posts that are on the fence, and it's a non-factory piece, but it still matches. Thank you.